This is Ground Affected. My name is your dad, and today I'm going to be painting some form of a Cajun. The Raging Cajun, to be precise. And let's just get into this video. First off, this model was sculpted by Alvaro Stuardo. I'll leave a link for his Instagram in the description down below. This video was not sponsored, unless you're counting me as a sponsor, but let's just stop dilly-dallying about this nonsense and just paint this dude, shall we? So I've been experimenting with these really quick intros lately because I really feel like we just want to get straight into it. And speaking of straight into it, I obviously have already prepared this model and given it a primer. Everything has been primed in black. This is a Chaos Black. Starting out with the silver parts on this model, I'm going to spray them silver. There's not much more I can explain to you other than silver parts need to be silver. Now, I absolutely hate the color of metallic silver on its own, so I like to give that a tint, and in this case I gave it a bluish tint just to make it not look silver all on its own. Now for the awesome Cajun suit that he likes to wear, which is this really long matrix cloak but in the brown color, not black because that would be weird. And to do that, all you got to do is spray brown over the top of the black that you have primed underneath it, and it will magically already look like there is some shading. That's going to need to dry, and while that dries, I'm going to take this bluish metallic color and dry brush this over the base. I don't care that there is lots of marks. The whole point is that there is marks because I want it to look like some form of a scuffed metal, as this dude is clearly standing on it. I also used a silver to catch some of the edges as well. And now to add a bit more color back into the silver. Do you remember I said I don't like silver on its own? I decided to spray that with my airbrush in the form of a wash, and that took away some of the edges with the nice shiny metallic colors, so I dry brushed the silver back onto that. Now that the boots are dry, I can spray them with a shiny gloss clear coat, and this is because I want to set it up for what I'm going to do to them later. Those need to go aside and dry for now while I work on the shadows on the cloak, and that is pretty simple really. I'm going to take a little bit of Reikland Fresh Shade at first and spray that into some of the shadows. This, however, was not dark enough, so I came back with Agrax Earthshade and I sprayed that into exactly the same places in the shadows. The Reikland is going to set up the tone for this color, and the Agrax is going to be the shadows. You can see I used it to line some areas as well. Now to work on his pant, I feel like this is also a metallic in color. I'm not really sure actually. It's supposed to be black, but black on its own is a really boring color. So I kind of messed around with some colors here using that bluish metallic tone and some purples to tint it. It was a little bit too light, so I took some black ink and I sprayed that into the shadows, which gave it a nice dark tone overall, and I kind of actually was happy with how that ended up being. Now to set up the skin tones on the model, I'm going to spray a white ink in a zenithal fashion, more volumetric-y but zenithally. These are just fancy words, don't even care about what they mean. Essentially I'm going to spray white ink to make it look like there is already highlights on the model. That needs to dry obviously, but now that these legs have dried, I can come back to them with a panel line wash. In this case it's actually just a wash from Ammo by Mig, and it's a black wash, and there is two ways of doing this, very carefully or just slapping it all over the model. Because we have used a gloss clear coat underneath, this means we can come back with a tissue and wipe it up before it's dry. Of course you will take out some of the deeper darker crevasses as well, so you kind of need to be a bit careful with this. Now on the side of Gambit's legs, he has these really cool pink squares. I'm not sure why, but they are really cool. So in order to make them nice and pink, I'm going to need to paint a couple of layers of pink over the top of them. And once I'm done with that, I'm essentially done with the lower portion of Gambit, so I'm going to glue his legs on and put him on his base to set him aside so I can carry on working on the rest of the model. The next step is going to be working more on the skins, and I'm going to use the classic Pinkle method and spray Pinkle over all of the skin tones. And now that that is drying, I have some time to start working on his torso thing. It feels like this could probably be some kind of an armor. I think it has to be. I mean, he only has the power of throwing magical cards, so he needs some form of an armor to protect him from the real mutants out there. And as you saw, 2 coats was a pretty much good enough layer to be happy with what I'm considering the color of his armored chest. I'm going to now mask off the rest of the cloak, because obviously I spent all that time painting it. I don't want to ruin it right now. But bearing in mind that there is an inner panel on the inside of that cloak, so I have a little bit of leeway with the masking here, and it doesn't have to be too perfect. Now I'm going to add a bit of this metallic medium into some pink, just to get that kind of metallic color to the suit. I'm then also going to use progressively different colors, because I have absolutely no color actually what I'm supposed to use as the shadow for this. So I started out with a violet ink. It was not good enough. I ended up using Magos Purple to help tint the surface color overall, to give it a bit more of a pinkish tone, a properly pinkish tone, and that's what I was going for in the end. I can now unmask everything, and obviously, like I said, I had a little bit of space to play with, so it didn't have to be too perfect, and I will show you why in a little bit. The next step is going to be using this really magical silver color from Ammo by Meg. I absolutely love this color for silver. By the way, if you're looking for a silver, this is the best one in my opinion. I'm going to paint the rim on the bottom of his torso, and I'm not going to paint the top one yet. That's because I'm going to use this metallic blue and paint that collar piece. After I've done painting that, now I can paint that silver piece, maintaining tidiness and cleanliness throughout the model. It's all about the timing of which you do things. This will make your painting a lot easier. If you do things at the wrong time, it's not going to be easy. Speaking of time, now is a good time to paint that slightly lighter inner section on his jacket, and as you can see, this is why I had some leeway when it came to the masking of this part of the model, because I was going to come back and paint it anyway. To work on his skins, I'm going to start out with a darker color from the Nocturna Flesh Set, Fairy Flesh Set series, and I'm going to spray that very thinly over the pinkle that I laid down. Then taking a slightly different approach and using a little bit of a warmer skin tone, I'm going to spray that over the top of the darker one that I'd set up before. And as you can see, this is a very huge jump. It really, if you want to do the skin tones a little bit, pay more attention to them, you don't want to jump as much as this, but sometimes it's okay to make a huge jump, and then you've got to deal with the contrast, the middle of the contrast a little bit later, and I'll show you how we'll deal with that. That's going to be using this Orcish Dermis. Spraying this from the shadows is going to kind of blend that crazy contrast with that huge jump of the color that we used before. Now I wasn't quite happy with the color of his skin, so I used a bit of yellow. I watered this down like 5% ink and like 95% water to spray over as a glaze, just to tint his skin. As you can see, it gives him a nice hue to the skin tone. I used some highlights to just boost the highlights at the end, and now it's time to work on his awesome headband thing that I feel like in the movie, the new movie, made Channing Tatum look a bit stupid, but let's not get into it. Anyway, I mixed a bit of black into that metallic blue because it was just too blue and too bright. This is a similar color, I would say, or if not the exact same color as what his pants should be, so take that with a pinch of salt. Anyway, I used that exact same color as well on his staff, because one thing I know is that making too many colors is the thing that ruins models. Speaking of ruining model, I'm pretty sure this was the dumbest idea I had. Anyway, I sprayed a gloss over the top of his mask because I felt like it needed to be shiny. It didn't make it shiny, it just made it look stupid. So later on, I came back and I put a matte over everything. So kind of ignore the fact that things are shiny at this point. You don't really need to do that part at all. I just felt like I'd leave it in so you could see that everybody makes mistakes. This is a thing, but it's part of the process. So it would look weird if I didn't explain why his head was shiny. Speaking of head, I need to paint that awesome head of hair that he has. That's going to be done with a dark brown, and using that exact same dark brown, I'm going to carefully etch in his eyebrows. This means I'm going to use brush strokes to make sure there is a couple of strokes on his eyebrows. They don't need to be perfect straight worms on his forehead, because that will look a little bit weird. I'm going to take some browns, different browns, and I'm going to highlight the areas on the hair. These browns, I went kind of towards a reddish area. It really depends on what you have available, but I just dry brushed some of the hairs to make them stand out a little bit. And now using that same color that I used for his stick, this was actually a black that I used for his hands, but I did mix a tiny little bit of that metallic blue into it. I painted his gloves because he only has 2 or 3 fingers sticking out, so you need to make sure you paint the rest of the fingers to make it work. Now to work on the OSL, I'm going to use a very nice, bright, vibrant, fluorescent pink, and I'm going to spray that like a crazy person all over the model. I'm not going to set up any whites. The whites that I set up is on just the magical area on the card itself, but in order to help sell that effect, I'm going to add a deck tan highlight or edge highlight on the base itself, and I'm going to paint some of that pink onto that deck tan afterwards, and I'm going to use the airbrush to lightly sort of shade around his foot and on the base itself as well. This is just going to help sell the effect. As you can see, the effect is sprayed quite vibrantly across his face, and I'm gonna now start working on his eyes before I start getting a little bit too heavy-handed with that OSL effect. For his eyes, I made a mistake previously before with Gambit, and I painted his eyes white, and I did that exact same mistake this time too. His sclera of his eyes is not white. The mutation that he has means that he has black eyes in the sclera part. Where the white is, it's supposed to be black. So you will see me come back and fix this after I'd realized it, but it took me a while to realize it. So I painted them black. Once they were black, it was pretty simple. Then I need to paint a white little dot in the center of them, and over that white I used the same magenta to kind of signify the powers that he's using. It's supposed to be red, don't at me. Once I was completely happy with that, that's pretty much where I called this model done. Before we reveal this model, I want to just mention very quickly, over on my Patreon, if you want to support me, there is extra videos, extra content, behind the scenes, work in progress pictures, and there's so many more things. I'm working on bringing as much as I can to that Patreon. Also, I just wanted to say, previously in a video, we painted a Velma, and we raffled that off so that we could help my friend get a chair. I don't know if you remember this, and if you don't, this might go straight over your head, but I just wanted to mention, we managed to make more than enough to get that man his chair, and I'm super happy about that. If you're unsure about this, there will be a video. I'll try to put a link somewhere. I don't know where it goes on the screen. You can go watch that video as well. Let's just reveal this model, shall we? As with every single video, I really do truly hope that you manage to find something in this video that might help you with your painting escapades. Really, honestly, that's the only point of everything. I just want to share everything I've learned and hopefully help someone out there just get over the first little hurdle of painting their models. Of course, this is a very good time in the video for me to thank everyone who does support the channel and help keep these lights blinding my eyeballs. The Patreons. I want to thank them from the heart of my bottom, as well as everyone else who watches the videos, who clicks the like, the share button, and the comments. Make sure to share it with your gran. Of course, if you didn't like it, I actually don't care, because this is the time where I get to tell you my true feelings, and that if you don't like it, you can kindly fuck off. Do you remember when I used to put extra words at the end of the video to see if anybody watched that far?